Major support for these programs is provided by Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, All Nation Renovation, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, M&T Bank. Additional support is provided by AVR Realty Company, LLC, Ackman Ziff Real Estate Group, LLC, Bingham McCutcheon, LLP, Briarwood Organization, Capital One Bank, C.B. Richard Ellis, James Orphanides, Centurion Holdings, Cushman & Wakefield, Dimes Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, DDG Partners, Eastern Consolidated, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Friedman, LLP, Accountants and Advisors, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Genova, Burns and Gian Tomasi, Grubb and Ellis, Investors Savings Bank, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Certified Public Accountants and Business Advisors, Newmark Knight Frank, RAL Development Services, The Spandrel Group, LLC, Siami Development, SJP Properties, Site Comply, Sterling and Sterling, Stephen Napolitano, The Wickoff Group, Urban American.
They call them celebrity chefs. These are the people that you see them on Top Chef, Masters, the next Iron King, Chopped. I mean, you catch them. You catch them on Today. You catch them on David Letterman. You catch these. These are these gurus, these fantastic people who know how to cook. Not like me. But today I've brought together, or should I say my friend Drew Naporin brought together with me, three of the best chefs, three of these top chefs, three people who are celebrity chefs, to talk about what's happening with celebrity chefs in the media. My guests today include that famous chef and TV personality, Amanda Freitag, the owner-chef of Corton, Paul Liebrandt, who also has a new HBO movie, which is called A Matter of Taste. The famous chef, owner, author, Jonathan Waxman of Barbudo. And last but not least, I can't have a restaurant show without him.
No, it's not possible.
Drew Naporin. We won't even tell you who he is, but he is the operator of all operators, and everybody loves him. So today, you've brought together three great chefs.
Well, I think what's happened is the media has finally recognized food in America and food in New York as a vital cultural part of our society. And now that TV, the electronic media, not just the TV Food Network, and then we're fortunate that a wonderful filmmaker by the name of Sally Rowe followed my partner Paul Liebrandt for 10 years in his travails as a chef, and we have a film coming out on HBO called Serving Up Paul Liebrandt, A Matter of Taste. So we have a documentary that HBO found to be worthy of purchasing. You have Johnny Waxman, who has had restaurants since the 70s, and now has turned up, right? You've turned up on a couple of TV shows, and also have a brand new book where.
Yeah, but this is his second book, But he's a West Coast guy.
But
we relocated him back here.
That's true, and he actually one of the pioneers of cooking in America, American food. Really, the whole Californication of American food was very vital, and John was the real pioneer there. And then Amanda Freitag, who was, I believe, the first female chef on your program.
Thank you.
So we broke some ground today, and Amanda, of course, is on a show called Chopped. She was on the Next Iron Chef,
Yep.
and was my neighbor downtown at a very good restaurant in Tribeca. So, the media is now very much a part of what we do.
So let's talk about the media. I mean, you've been followed, as Drew said, for 8 years on this movie. How'd that happen? And, what effect do you think that has on people wanting to go to Corton? I mean, you got great reviews. I mean, a number of years ago, you got 3 stars. I mean, you're a very world-renowned chef, even though if you're from London, as you said. Tell us, what about the movie and what about this? What effect does that have on your restaurant?
Well, I mean, the movie itself is, obviously HBO is a very good platform to have it on. So it's very good for people to understand what we do. And the movie itself is a very real account of what it takes to actually be in this business. So for those who are outside of New York, across America, and wherever else HBO is watched in the world, it's a little slice of what we do as chefs in our own lives, in our business. And I think everybody is always fascinated about restaurant business. Owning a restaurant is a very, how can I say this, sexy thing for a lot of people to want to do. I wouldn't suggest most people do it, but it's something which I think most people would love to be a partner or a part of. And so I think something like this movie, for example, gives a little slice, a little insight into the business. So it gets people excited. And I think that, it's not that in itself which drives business. It's not like it's an avalanche of business from one TV appearance or one show, but I think lots of little things like that definitely help.
But I think it's the movie, it's not only a movie. I mean, if you go, people live on the internet today. Mm-hmm. People, they look at the internet, they look at YouTube, they look at iTunes, they look at all of these situations, and they see different situations in the people. I know my own wife, Chopped. She watches it intently. It's DVR'd over there. The next Iron Chef. Diners, Drivers, and Dives. Well, Man versus Food was one of mine, but yes.
I think what Paul was saying is there's a twofold to this, the media and restaurants, and I think you'll most agree with me. It's romanticized our field. And so now that chefs are celebrities and chefs are media personalities and they're out there, it's good because people are attaching themselves to you and they're wanting to come and eat your food, which is the best advertisement you can get. You know how competitive the restaurant industry is. But at the same time, making our industry look like it's fun, it's a party, it's easy, and there's an influx of people wanting to be in this industry because of that. People will say to me, "Oh, I saw you on the Food Network. You're a new chef. How long have you been doing this?" I've been doing this at least 20 years. I'm not a new chef. I'm a new face on your TV. I'm a new personality in your life. I've been doing this for a very long time.
Now, you've been over 30 years in this business?
Over 30 years, yeah. Well, it's really funny. When I went to school in Paris to study cooking, I was very lucky, and I went there in 1975. And at that time in France, all these chefs like the Trois Gros brothers and Roger Verger and Michel Guérard were becoming media stars. And that was happening in France in the 70s. It's taken us as Americans all these years to sort of follow what happened there. Now that they weren't really on they weren't TV people. They were on the covers of magazines and things like that, but they were really people that other industries watched. They were people. It was an exciting, as Paul said, it's a sexy industry. And now all of a sudden now what's happening in America is that when I came to the restaurant business, my father looked at me and said, "You're nuts. It's like, why don't you just go dig ditches for a living? Why don't you go work in a gas station?" It's kind of, that was the parallel of what a cook was. And then what people are discovering is that people, like Andre Soltner and people that were in New York, that were the real wonderful chefs of New York, were always there and doing great things. They didn't get that kind of publicity. And what's interesting now is, I wish those guys did, because they were the people that influenced me.
Now, being a celebrity chef, I mean, the three of you, it's a different case. Doesn't really mean that the restaurant is really a good restaurant. So, there are people, there's this facade. There's the quality. I mean, not everybody.
But, Michael, the earliest celebrity chefs,
Julia Childs?
right, they didn't have restaurants.
Right.
They were cooking in the home kitchens. And even
Are
I
you talking
related
about
to that.
Betty Crocker? What is it?
Well, even Betty Crocker, Dione Lucas. I think what's changed and why the media has jumped in is because there's this incredible interest in food in general. And it's interesting to watch the TV Food Network because they did first start with the food professionals. And then over the last couple of years, they've actually phased out some of the food
Right,
professionals.
they created, that person, who's the housewife, who's become a new person, the 12-minute meal or something like that. I think they're trying to show Middle America that anyone, with a desire. I mean, as you said, you went to France 30 years ago. You came over to America, from London a number of years ago. How people became chefs, or how people went into the restaurant business.
You see, in New York, and obviously the people here, they're exceptional chefs. You have some chefs, celebrity chefs on the Food Network now who don't cook, they eat. I happen to like diners, drive-ins, and diners, but I mean, all we watch is this guy do is eat. It's like the interesting thing about our film.
He's not showing him. He's not in that show. He's not a chef. He's really a personality.
Yeah, food personality.
Okay, he's a food personality. Right. When the three of you you're chefs. You're specialists. You have that creativity. He may have had it when he had Johnny, the pizza place or the other place in California. But he's not talking about his cooking today. He's talking that he's a personality.
Yeah, but when he has a book out, it's a cookbook. So when they put him on the Today Show, he's going to cook something. And what's the effect of that? Today it has an immediate effect.
Yeah, it's amazing. But there is a real difference, I think, between chefs and cooks. And I think where people get a little confused about this stuff is that, we've spent our whole lives to become chefs. We didn't start off as chefs. We started off as cooks, and we were proud to be cooks. We wanted to peel vegetables and make stocks and do all those things that cooks did. When you become a chef, all of a sudden there's a responsibility with that.
There's a lot of pressure on it.
There's a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of pride, and there's a lot of distinction involved with it. But there's a lot of people looking at you, and there's a lot of scrutiny. So if you're not up to the game, you're not a chef. You're a glorified cook, and there's a lot of glorified cooks out there, and they will become chefs, hopefully. Right. But some people are not. They'll be happy just being cooks, and you see these people all the time. A chef is a very special person.
Yes, and like you were saying, how do we know that these celebrity chefs are really good at what they do? And I think again, it's sort of this role reversal. People come into Barbudo and they eat this amazing food, and then they meet Jonathan and they say, "What a great guy! Oh, we want to see more of him. We like him. We want to see him cook. We want other people to see him." So it's sort of.
So we were also saying that a good chef, as opposed to a cook, also has to have a personality.
Well.
In many aspects.
We're talking about celebrity chefdom in a way. But also, I mean, really, when you become a chef, I've had plenty of sous chefs or cooks that want to be sous chefs and sous chefs that want to be chefs. And then they have to manage. And then you have to go to the dining room and you have to talk to people. And you have to know how to deal with people. It's, for God's sakes, the hospitality industry. So if you're hospitable and you're a good chef, you know how to talk to people, and that makes you a good personality.
It was a show that we did a couple of months ago, Drew and I, and he brought a number of his friends. And basically the topic was touching your table. The key was touching your table, of getting out of the kitchen, if you were a chef, if you were the executive chef, or if you were the owner, and literally going over to your customer and talking to them. I mean, we got to the discussion which related to open table. And somebody was saying, we hate open table, and it was Julian Nicoloni who basically said, I don't mind open table, even though I want my people to call me, because sometimes they wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, they go on the internet and they make the reservations. There's different points of view. But
that's a whole nother show, by the way.
I have a question for Paul. Paul, you're not an outgoing person, right? You're in certain ways you are, but
outgoing person.
But what? As a chef, I think most chefs are usually shy. That's why you hide behind the stove. Most people are.
How do you mean not outgoing person?
Well,
you like being in the kitchen. You're not going to go roaming around the dining room.
I'm not a hermit.
But you're not going to roam around the dining room.
I do. I go say hello to the customers every
But you're
evening.
but you're more comfortable in the kitchen, correct?
I'm comfortable where I feel wanted. So if I go to a table and they look at me and I give me this look like, why is this person coming to my table? I leave and I go back to the kitchen. I have no problem going to the dining room. I do it every single night. I want to look in the eyes of the people who are dining and talk to them and find out why they are coming here. That's my job. My job is to please them, and a lot of the pleasure they get is seeing the chef.
So you actually ask an important question, because a lot of these shows portray people in roles because it's edited down,
Right.
especially the competition shows. The beauty of what has transpired with the HBO film that's about to come out is that they do take an element of his controversial personality, if you will, and kind of show it. They show it in its behind the scenes the way it is. What's good for our commerce or our business is that, you know, for people who might be intimidated about going to a restaurant where they don't quite understand the food or the person cooking the food, it shows it. And I believe when they show it, good, bad, or indifferent, when they come to the restaurant, there's a better understanding of what we do. And that's really important.
Right.
You know, if you have a preconceived notion of something after watching a show, that's better than having a preconceived notion about something with no frame of reference.
It was interesting. When I was the chef at Michael's in Los Angeles, and there were so many personalities going to that restaurant, you know, from Ronald Reagan to everybody, and Michael would always try to drag me out in the dining room and said, people want to see you, they want to talk to you, they love your food. I said, I'm not going out there. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to embarrass you. And he used to drag me out, and it really formed my personality. Because if it wasn't Michael dragging my butt out there just to do what you do, you know, to meet and greet and exchange hospitality, it was a precursor of my being on TV. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize how I was forming my sort of persona for TV. But I owe Michael my life for that, because he broke the ice for me.
But you know, here's an interesting
He's very
thing.
shy.
There are a number of successful restaurant chains or operations who really don't live with a celebrity chef. I mean, they're successful, financially successful. We're not talking about the quality. You know, we all joke about the Palm, but you've never seen a celebrity chef from the Palm. I mean,
No, but even Chipotle, for instance, Stephen Ells is clever enough now himself to be on a TV show or to recruit very well-known chefs from around the country to be the face of his product. Look, at the end of the day, this was an industry dominated by owners. It was an industry not dominated by cooks and chefs. There were a certain number of people who promoted the chefs to the point but that promotion was deserved. In other words, these are the people doing the hard work. These are the people doing the heavy lifting and the cooking. They deserve the credit.
we had Buzzy on the show. Buzzy promoted his chefs. Buzzy was someone, you know, he
was unusual in that respect,
Mm-hmm.
Michael.
Right, but Buzzy O'Keefe did that.
The River Cafe.
River Cafe
He was
was
smart enough an operator to realize that he had talent in the kitchen, and the talent needed exploitation.
Yeah.
So that the customers understand where the food was coming from.
Right, and
where the dishes were
Alan
made.
Stillman, when he did Park Avenue Cafe with David, he used him as a chef.
That's correct.
Okay, as opposed to in Smith or Walensky or something like that, they don't have any chef. It's the
Michael,
same.
in 1983, I opened 24 Fifth Avenue in the Village with Leslie Revson, and I put Leslie's name on the menu. The owner came to me and said, "What are you putting her name on the menu?" I said, "She's cooking." But that was like revolutionary. So think about it. That was 28 years ago. It's a long time ago, but so you know, basically what's interesting about hospitality is that the chefs have now become the restaurateurs. And in some cases, we've regressed. In other words, and we were talking about this earlier about a certain restaurant in Los Angeles. You can't even get sauce on the side. The other day, I was in a restaurant, very famous restaurant, and well-known chef, and it was not busy, and the burger comes with fries, and I said, listen, I know you're very idiosyncratic about changing things, but I'd like a vegetable. And they said, I can do that. And I said, and you're going to charge, we'll bring you the side dish. And I said, and you're going to charge me the $8 for the side dish. And they said, yes. I said, I could have figured that out for myself. In other words, restaurateurs sometimes are not, restaurateurs are willing to do anything for the customer, whereas the chefs, when they are the restaurateurs, are more like, this is the way it's going to come, and we're not messing with that.
There's
You
a
know
certain
that's
thing, Michael, and I think you relate to
that's
that.
pervasive.
That chefs they didn't get MBAs. They didn't study psychology.
Thank you.
They didn't study real estate. They didn't understand all the things that are really necessary to become restaurateurs. We learned how to cook. That's what we did. And we figured out, we'll figure stuff up along the way. And then it's a really interesting thing. Now with this whole celebrity thing. There's a real sort of, a bird's eye view into what we do. And if we don't do it well, we don't make money, we're not profitable, we don't have a great game, basically. We're not really good chefs.
Now, Drew brought up a couple of years ago landlords or real estate people who really understood bringing in the right restaurateur or the right chef, like Richard Lefrak when he brought Nobu. How do you see today? Have you seen landlords saying, I really want somebody like a Jonathan or Amanda or a Paul to be there, because it's going to help my property.
Yeah.
It's going to improve the value of the location.
Well, I can only hope so because I'm using that at this point.
No, but have
But
you
I
seen
am, and I have to say, like, when I graduated culinary school and I started working in New York, and I stayed a long time at Verbena with Diane Forley. And back in the day, when you promoted yourself, you went to Macy's and you did classes, you did things for kids. It was all about doing kind of cooking classes. There wasn't a lot of, TV stuff going on. There was no Food Network. So you became like these personalities by teaching about food, and people were always interested in food. So you learned how to do that in front of people. And like I said before, when I started doing any kind of media and was asked to do it, I said yes to a lot of things that were important to me, things that were food focused, like we were talking about, because I knew it would bring more revenue to the restaurant. And now, for me, I'm lucky enough to be able to then use that platform to get what I want now, to get my dream and to make it happen. It's not going to be everything. I still need to know how to run a kitchen, and I still need to know how to make money, and I still need to know how to be a business
Now,
person.
here's the bigger question. How much can you spread yourself?
Well, I've seen some people.
No.
It's very
No,
thin.
I'm not. I'm talking about that's the big question. You're the chef, really chef, and running the restaurant. You're not the cook. You're running the restaurant. I mean, you can't be three barbudos. Okay, can you do that in New York City? Is that
Here's the
You have
famous.
to have a lot of
here's the famous-
integrity. You have to keep your integrity.
Right,
I really
and Paul
feel
Bocuse-
about that.
Paul's not going to be able to do 2 quartons.
No, but Paul. Okay, that's correct because that is a specific.
That's
case.
exactly what I'm
But Paul
bringing up.
Bocuse,
But
the
I think
famous
you're
French
wrong.
chef.
You're wrong. You can do it. If you look at someone like Alain Ducasse, three Michelin-starred restaurants, absolutely you can do it.
No, you're right. But there is a spreading thin with the Gordon Ramsay part of the.
but that's
same
the
kind of idea.
The difference is, Gordon Ramsay is not in his kitchen. In terms of his eye is not on his business, he is on TV. That's his focus. His focus is about himself and the celebrity of being himself. Alain Ducasse does not do that. Alain Ducasse runs his business. He's a celebrity in a different way.
Right.
He's not there cooking the food, but he's watching those numbers. He has people in place that are loyal to him, that stay with him.
What about Kellner?
Keller is exactly the same way. Thomas Keller is not interested in doing TV like Gordon Ramsay does. He's interested in expanding who he is, his brand, his name, what he stands for, the promotion of this country, the product from this country. That's how he is able to do a Per Se and a French Laundry. You have to have systems, procedures, and you have to have a very strong team around you to be able to do it. It's not impossible. The guy I work for, Pierre
The
Gagnier,
answer to your question.
the guy I work for, Pierre Gagnier, of all people on planet Earth, would be the last person when I worked there that I would ever feel could expand. It was so spontaneous. Changing the dish 10 different times on one service.
Robuchon?
You would be like, absolutely no way. He now has 10 restaurants all over the world. Why? He has a system.
Because Paul Bocuse, the famous Paul Bocuse, said what? That when they asked him, well, who's cooking in your kitchen when you're not there? And he said, the same people who are cooking when I am there.
Yeah, it's like you buy an Armani suit. Do you think Armani stitched the suit for you personally?
The
No.
most successful restaurateur in this case is Wolfgang Puck. I looked at his sales last year, and it's staggering how much money that he made, and various businesses that he has, catering and restaurants. But it's exactly what Paul's saying. He's got a great system. He's got great loyal people that love him, work for him. They won't leave him. And I think that there's a chef who come from a very humble beginning in Austria, and look where he is today. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing business story. It's an amazing chef story. It's an amazing personality story. And he's still down-to-earth Wolfing. You can hang out with him and talk to him like a normal. He doesn't. His head is not up in the sky. And to me, that's a really great success story.
And also, it's important to point out certain chefs, like Daniel Boulud, actually produced his own TV program after hours. John George von Gerichten has now the Kimchi Chronicles, producing their own program. So the idea of spreading yourself thin, I think it's something that it's an individual case.
It's a slippery slope, because I think what Amanda says, that you have to have your business acumen together, but you also have to parlay your personality that you built this up. What do you do with all this media hype? You got to do something with it. If you let it dissipate, you've lost it. So
you got to take the advantage.
You got to strike when the iron's hot.
When you have this media right now, you must strike now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because later on they're going to forget you.
Nothing lasts.
I mean, I'd love to see Paul in a different venue. I would love it. It'd be great if he could feed more people than the Corton space, and in a different style. And it would be fantastic.
I'm not that old just yet, so there's a lot more coming. There's a lot more.
But I'd love more
inside.
I'd love to see what else he could do.
I would love to do it, because for me, doing a single restaurant like Corton, we're only 60 seats. It's great, but it's so boutique.
Exactly.
And
many
to
seats do
be
you have
able
at your
to show what you do
75,
to a
80.
much bigger audience is a fantastic thing.
And
but
people would love to see it.
But it has to also be the right thing.
Exactly.
Expansion for the sake of expansion, doing media for the sake of doing it isn't always the best way. It has to be the right thing.
Amanda?
I want to touch on something that you said, because I know you and myself, we all have other interests too. I mean, John George is producing a show. He must be having a blast doing that. I mean, in a way, we're all artists. So, I mean, you love music and art and, whatever side projects. I mean, we got lucky that we can now put our hands in other things, and that re-inspires us into what we do every day. Because sometimes the grind of looking at the same plate and the same dupes is maddening, So,
And I hope that in my 11th season, which will start in September, I will have all of you back. I'd like to thank Amanda, Paul, Jonathan, and needless to say, my executive producer, Drew. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Major support for these programs is provided by Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, All Nation Renovation, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, M&T Bank. Additional support is provided by AVR Realty Company, LLC, Ackman Ziff Real Estate Group, LLC, Bingham McCutcheon, LLP, Briarwood Organization, Capital One Bank, C.B. Richard Ellis, James Orphanides, Centurion Holdings, Cushman & Wakefield, Dimes Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, DDG Partners, Eastern Consolidated, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Friedman LLP, Accountants and Advisors, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Genova, Burns and Gian Tomasi, Grubb and Ellis, Investors Savings Bank, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Certified Public Accountants and Business Advisors, Newmark Knight Frank, RAL Development Services, The Spandrel Group LLC, Siami Development, SJP Properties, Site Comply, Sterling and Sterling, Stephen Napolitano, The Wickoff Group, Urban American.